Testing, testing. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Test, test, test. 1, 2. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Test, test, test. 1, 2. Okay, looks like audio is sounding pretty decent. Okay, looks like audio is okay, let's go ahead and release the splash screen. Okay, and we are back. Perfect. Okay, welcome fellow Kerbonauts, back to another day of live streaming. I don't normally play real solar system a whole lot, partially because I'm not a big fan of overly complex mods, but every now and then I do feel the itch, and the fact that we made it all the way to episode 2 of this little live stream means that it's a little bit more than an itch. So let's go ahead and see if we can continue on with our little space ventures and see if we can get ourselves over to the moon today. I hear you, Duck Swan. Yeah, the getting used to the new bell system on YouTube subscriptions is takes a little bit of patience sometimes. Okay, so first off, let's go ahead and take a look and see if we can check on the status of things. Last we checked, we brought our moon space station, well, the first piece of the moon station into orbit around Earth. And let's take a look at the status of it, because if I remember correctly, I think in our last episode, we pretty much got it not only into orbit, but we got it fueled up and ready to go. Yep. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the vessel's, let's see here. Let's take a look at its total delta V here. Okay, so right now our delta V is at 6330. Oh, that is way more than we need to get ourselves to the moon, so we should be okay. Generally, we're looking at about 3100, 3200 delta V in order to get ourselves into moon insertion, and then about an extra 800 delta V in order to get ourselves burned into orbit around the moon. Okay, so let's go ahead. First off, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to get this piece of this space station, which really doesn't have any habitable components. It's just a hub with a lot of life support attached to it. And we're going to get this thing into orbit around the moon. And then after that, we're going to test out the Orion module I built offline, see if it has the capability to get ourselves to the moon. And we're going to test docking and rendezvous with this little module here. So let's go ahead and check the inclination to the moon. First off, let's go ahead and set our target. Okay, so the moon is already set as the target, and our rendezvous relative inclination is at 0.006 degrees on the rendezvous. That doesn't seem quite right. Let's see. It should. Oh, actually, I guess it is. Okay, well. It should, because the relative inclination should not be changing to the moon, since I already launched this thing in the orbit on a relative incline to the moon. So all we got to do now is we just have to set our maneuver nodes. We should be good to go. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, and let's see here slowly. That should be pretty good. 3142. That's generally about the right amount of delta V that we need to get ourselves there. Let's go and take a look and see. Okay, so that's going to make us crash into the moon. Which is perfectly fine. We can make a little bit of an adjustment after we do this burn. Okay, so let's make sure that we are aligned properly. So we're going to do control here. to that docking port, and then we are going to target towards the maneuver node. Ever so slowly. Okay. There we go. And we've got ourselves targeted to the maneuver node. According to this one, it's going to be a 35 minutes to the node. I'm not quite sure how long the burn's going to be, but considering that how powerful this engine is, we're going to be generating about 10 G's worth of forces here. So we should be able to do this in a pretty decent amount of time on the burn. With the Orion module, however, we have to be a little bit more considerate about, because the Orion module is going to have crewed individuals, and we need to be a little more considerate about the Kerbals on board. So we're going to be using atomic engines in order to send the Orion module to the moon, which means we're going to be generating slightly less than a whole G worth of thrust. Keep them nice and comfortable. Okay, here we go. So we're going to do a test burn. 3, 2, 1, mark. There we go. So that's going to be a 2 minute 40 second burn. So let's go ahead and zoom ourselves about, and we're going to speed up time here. Let's turn off the vessel, and all we need is just a rendezvous telemetry here. Oh, there we go. And then activating burn. 3, 2, 1, and mark. All right, we're going to F5 for safety. Okay. And there we are, a nice clean burn. Well, welcome back, Flyer Fred. How are you today? And here we go. All right, so we've got a 1 minute 40 second burn to the moon. Oh, let's get that engineer back up and running here. Okay, then we need to tab through all of these items here so we can get ourselves back to the moon here. I imagine there's probably an easier way to tab back to the to the station, but the button kind of escapes me right now other than tab. So, all right, so we are passing the maneuver node with 50 seconds remainder in the burn, so we should be pretty good. Yes, just in time, Flyer Fred. Glad to have you back aboard. And relative inclination is staying pretty steady. That is a good thing. Okay, we are down to 1 kilometer's worth of delta V left in this burn. There we go. Okay, at some point we can go ahead and disengage this maneuver node here, and I can just eyeball the rest of it. Here we go. 200 meters per second, 100 meters per second. And disengage. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off this maneuver node, and I am going to engage the limiter on the main engine here. That way we don't overthrust as we try to make these very slight adjustments. So we're going to put the limiter at 4% and going to give this one a slight burn. Okay, and at some point we should get to some sort of let's see, SOI interception here with the moon. Okay, there we are. Next up. All right. And we're going to continue to burn some more. We certainly are, Flyer Fred. We are attempting to continue to build the space station around the moon. It's going to be a little bit of work here. Considering the amount of delta V required to do just about anything in real solar system. Let's see here. So let's go ahead and burn some more. Okay, we want to do a prograde burn. All right, there we go. And very carefully. All right, that should do it. Let's take a look and see what we got here. All right, so this is roughly about a prograde burn. We are coming in, wow, 371,000 kilometers. But that's okay. We can go ahead and make those adjustments. Let me go and double check at our vessel's remainder delta V, because we should have quite a bit of delta V left in this vehicle to do quite a bit of maneuvering around the moon. Let's take a look here. So vessel delta V, 3100. Oh yeah, we got plenty. once we reach the moon, all we need is 800 meters per second delta V to get ourselves into a stable orbit. And then after that, gosh, we would have over 2,000 delta V left just to play around with. I imagine we'll use that pretty liberally, though, to get ourselves into a nice, proper orbit. Because once we get to the moon, we need to make sure that the inclination on the orbit matches a standard inclination around the Earth, too. Let's see here. You are so good at KSP. Well, thank you, Flyer Fred. Flyer Fred asks if I'm in the USA or in United Kingdom. Sir, I am in USA. So, unfortunately, considering politics and all, although I do try to steer away from politics in these streams. So, let us continue here. All right, so let's head on over to the moon, not the mun. So let's go ahead and speed up time. And while I'm at it, while I'm speeding up time, gosh, I definitely need to rename this space station. Don't want to keep calling it the core module forever. Let's see here. We're gonna call it the Moon Gateway Moon Deep Space Gateway Station. All right, so something fairly similar to what NASA plans to call their space station, which hopefully they tend to build, that will be orbiting the moon as well. It's night right now in United Kingdom. Oh, well, good evening to you, sir. Okay, so we're going to head on about here. We got pretty good communication with back home. Looks like signal strength is still at 100%. So that's always a good thing. Oh, let's make sure our antennas are activated just to make sure. Okay, so we want to get this antenna extended, and then we want to do the bottom antenna. Definitely important. Okay, now let's go ahead and make our way there. Now, it looks like we're going to be going into a prograde orbit, thankfully. Ooh, around 4 million meters. We're going to be about 4,000 kilometers from the moon on its periaps. Something we'll definitely adjust. Okay, Mr. Duck Swan, we are gonna see if we can assemble a station around the moon. Not fairly comfortable with doing that sort of thing, mainly because of the amount of delta V required, which usually means that we need to build these ginormous, unnecessarily large rockets. Especially since we're not using real fuels, that tends to make things a little bit more challenging. We're using the SMURFF mod instead, which allows us to be able to use regular LFO fuels instead of incredibly complex fuels that comes with the Realism Overhaul Fuels mod. The neat thing about that is it still allows us to continue to mine for minerals and for fuels when we would like to mine. The downside of it, though, is that the fuel efficiency tends to be a little bit worse than if we were to use real fuels. But that is okay. We will figure out ways around that. Okay, so we are now in the moon SOI. And taking a look at our periaps, we are at 4 million meters. Let's see here. So am I a hacker or cheater then? Well, hopefully neither or. Not a big fan of using HyperEdit or cheating the game here. Anything that plays the game for me, I'm not a huge fan of, which is why I don't use MechJab or any incredibly complex autopilot feature that plays the game for me. Let's see here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we need to decrease this periap. So let's turn ourselves... okay, we're going to turn ourselves radial in. That way, we're going to turn ourselves directly perpendicular into the center of the moon. And then we're going to burn in order to drop our periaps. Here we go. And burning away. Excuse me. Okay, and that should be dropping our periaps. We got plenty of delta V, so we can make errors in our orbit to our heart's content. Alright, so let's go and increase the thrust. Right now, we are running at 4% thrust on the main engine. if it were maxed out. So we should be running at some fairly minimal thrust here. Okay. Max thrust, which is 4% of our max. Making mistakes is half the fun. Oh yeah, that certainly is. Unfortunately, with a real solar system, it is way too easy to make mistakes. Let's see here. And yeah, fairly steep learning curve here when trying to figure this this mod out. And that's not even trying to figure out real fuels. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can get this thing at about a 100-kilometer orbit should be good enough. Uh-oh. Where's my polar orbiter? I should have a polar orbiter around the moon. Maybe I'll see it once I get closer. Because remember, I did send a survey satellite on a polar orbit around this moon. And it's a little disconcerting that I can't see it. Definitely going to need it in order to maintain communications when I fall onto the dark side of the moon. Okay, so we are at 500 kilometers, 400 kilometers on the periapse. 200 kilometers. We'll drop ourselves down to about 100 kilometers. Okay, there we go. 100 kilometers, perfecto. Okay, let's go ahead and scoot ourselves in. And we got ourselves in a nice, steady, prograde orbit. There it is. Okay, woo! There's our survey satellite. I was kind of worried there. Alright, so next up, we're going to go ahead and turn ourselves retrograde. We've got the beautiful moon below us there. Losing spacecraft is always a good omen. That's debatable, sir. Alright, let's go and turn our craft here to horizontal to the horizon. And then we got about 4 minutes till we reach the periapse. Let's go ahead and scooch a little bit forward here. Okay, there we go. And then, beginning burn, max thrust, well, 4% thrust isn't exactly max there. Let's go ahead and increase the max thrust there to 20%. Okay, there we are. And our vessel Delta V is at 2,000. We're looking really good here. Moon insertion burn is looking good. Let's go and take a look at our orbital telemetry here. Orbital telemetry is at 28.3 degrees, which is pretty decent. Okay, so we've inserted ourselves into orbit. After we get ourselves inserted into orbit, what we're going to do is we're going to adjust our orbital inclination just a little bit. Because what we want to do is we want to set up our orbital inclination to match the orbital inclination of the Earth. That way, if we ever want to launch something from the space station and send it back to the Earth, we're always on that perfect inclined orbit to go back to the Earth. And that is especially helpful, say, if we want to go back to an Earth space station that's in a parallel inclination orbit. So what we need to do here is, see here, the inclination orbit is at 28.37 degrees, which is actually, I think, just about perfect. A good orbital inclination, if we were launching something from Florida, normally a vehicle would be in a 28.36 degree orbital inclination if it went into orbit once launched from Cape Canaveral in Florida. So we are awfully close. We are just off by 1/100th of a degree. So it's pretty much darn near perfect. We really don't need to adjust it that much. But we'll go ahead and do that too, just for OCD purposes. Okay, so first off, let's go ahead and get ourselves to the inclination declination node here, which is just about this spot where the orbital line intersects with the moon. And then we are going to turn ourselves to anti-normal. I believe that's right. Okay, and then we're gonna change our max thrust again, bring that down to about 4%. And then we're just gonna give a slight little burn. Now watch the orbital inclination here. Oops. There we go. Oops, orbital inclination's increasing. Judge that one wrong. Okay, let's go ahead and turn ourselves to the normal node. And then we'll burn from there. Oh, let's see. Favorite YouTuber? Well, thank you, Flyer Fred. 1/100th off, man. How do you sleep at night? I don't know. All right, let's go ahead and burn again. There we go. So our inclination is dropping. We are at 28.36 degrees. Good on the inclination. We want to drop it to about 28.364. So let's turn on RCS. And very slight puffs. There we go. 28.364 degrees puts this space station at an exact parallel to, say, the international, to a space station orbiting around Earth if it was launched from Cape Canaveral. So that is perfect. Look at this. Look at this. So if I line this up and then I zoom out, you notice these smooth lines, how they're nice and parallel. It's so beautiful. Look at that. Okay, so let's go ahead and zip around the moon and see if we can make this orbit a little bit more circular. I think what we're going to do is we're going to focus on getting this thing at, I think, 150 kilometers will be a safe orbit. So let's go ahead and do that. Or rather, let's go ahead and stick it at 100 kilometers. That should be fine. Okay, and we're on a dark side of the moon. Thankfully, we've got our polar orbiter there. Oh, and we lost connection. Oh, no. Okay, so, let's see here. Okay, let's see. So, let's go ahead and turn ourselves prograde. Ooh, RCS off. Accidentally left RCS on there. Then, let's see here. Okay, so we lost connection. That's rather unfortunate. So we can't really burn from here. Alright, so we're just going to have to flip around to the other side, and we're back in connection again. I'm probably going to have to send some more relay satellites to the moon here. And if need be, well, once we send the Orion capsule up here to dock with the station, we can probably do some handiwork that only Kerbals can do when they're in situation at the spacecraft itself. Till then, we are doing all of this remotely. Okay, turning ourselves retrograde. And we're going to push this thing to 100 kilometers. Do you like the mod BD Armory? Well, I know a lot of people do, especially a lot of people in the KSP community. They have this infatuation with looking for ways to shoot and blow things up, which by itself has its own kind of charm to it. I'm not a huge fan of it myself, though. Every once in a while, I do like to play a game that doesn't involve weaponizing everything and vaporizing stuff. So if you'll forgive me, I'm not a terribly big fan of the Armory mod, putting guns on spacecraft and whatnot. Let's see here. Okay, so 150 kilometers on the apoaps. 100. Okay, good, good, good. And we're going to turn the RCS on here. And we're going to get... Yeah, this is a little bit sloppy, but we'll get this fixed up at some point. Okay, here we go. And zooming forward to the apoaps. And we're going to try to get this as close to a circularized 100-kilometer orbit as we can. As you can see here on the orbital marker, orbital eccentricity is down to 3,000th of a perfectly circularized orbit. We can definitely get that a lot closer. Okay. Go. And I think from here we're going to use RCS jets here. Okay, there we go. All right, so we got the periaps to 100 kilometers. Next up, we just need to get the apoaps to the same mark. So we're just going to zip around to the other side of the moon. To the periaps. There we are. Okay, and then we're going to turn ourselves prograde. And then we are going to decrease this apoaps by 8 kilometers. Here we go. RCS is up and running. And nice and steady. 1, 0. Good deal. Look at that. Beautiful. And look at that eccentricity. 0.00005. Beautiful. Okay, next up what we're going to do is we're going to turn the space station to normal. And gosh, at this point I would get rid of this tank here, but there's just so much fuel left in this tank. It would be a shame to get rid of it. I think I'm going to leave it attached for now until I get a fuel tank up here to the space station, a permanent fuel tank. And then we'll transfer all the fuel from this part over to this part here. Okay, inclination is at 28.36 degrees, which is perfect. All right, and then let's take a look and see what we got here. Fuel load is... Yeah, we still got 974 liquid fuel, which is actually a not indecently small amount on this station here. So we're looking really good. And let me see, if I remember correctly, I got life support on this thing. Yep. Okay, so got everything but a habitable module. All right, here we go. So next up, let's see here. Try to make a car jumping from the moon to the Earth. That would be very fun. Oh, I imagine not only would that be fun, but close to impossible. I love the lines. They aim for perfection and realism, the best standard. Okay, I agree, sir. All right, so, and we got the beautiful moon below us there, and we got all of our dishes activated here, so we got essentially another relay satellite around orbit around the moon. Just so happens to also be a space station of sorts. Okay, so we are going to F5 for safety. And then, next up, we're going to head back over to the Space Center. And we are going to begin our first manned orbit around the moon. And this is mainly so that we can test the capabilities of our Orion moon module. As well as have our Kerbals dock. We're going to test docking and rendezvous with the moon station as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and load this up here. And I think I have one already pre-built. Right, Orion Moon version Mark II. Look at that. Beautiful. So as you can see, we have got a standard launch vehicle here using 5-meter parts. Again, not a huge fan of ginormous 5-meter parts, but you know, it's something that's almost essential in the real solar system mod. So we'll definitely have to use that. Okay, and then we got these 3-meter part solid rocket boosters. But before we do that, first off, we need to get ourselves into a proper window for the moon. So we're going to drop a pod on the pad. Did you already try to redirect an asteroid to the Earth? It is so hard. Yes, I've done it once. And it was a pain. Who knows? I may try it again someday. Okay, so first off, we need to get ourselves into the proper window. So let's go ahead and target the moon. Set as target. And then rendezvous. And as you can see, our relative inclination is at 28 degrees. We need that to be down as close to 0 as we can get it. So we're going to speed up time here. So this is going to jump to the night side of the Earth. And then eventually go to the light side. Okay, and 56 degrees. Now it's going to drop. Let's get our relative inclination down to, if I remember correctly, the closest it can get is 0.2 degrees. So we'll get it somewhere around that. There we go. Okay. Back to the Earth again. Relative inclination is at 0.35 degrees. Perfect. All right. So next up, let's go ahead and get the Orion module on the pad. Oops. There we go. Okay, and it's going to be the Orion Moon Mark II. Let's see. Oh, there we are. And then we're going to put the original 3, Jeb, Bill, and Bob. Mark II. There we go. And then launch. Okay. There we are on the pad. And next up, we are going to target the moon. And let's go ahead and give ourselves a launch, shall we? Let's see here. Going to go ahead and press caps lock here and switch ourselves over to fine-tune controls. SAS is on, and 5, 4, oops, let's move these parts up to the top. Okay, so we activate the engine first, and then we release the clamps. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and mark. And release clamps, and we have liftoff. Well, hello there, Ethan Gaming. Okay, and we have liftoff. Okay. Everything's looking good. We are past 50 meters per second, so we're going to go and tilt our rocket to 5 degrees. There we are. Nice and beautiful. Okay. Now, hopefully, given everything, we have enough delta V to not only get to the moon, but also get into an orbit around the moon, do some docking and rendezvous, and have enough fuel left over to head back to Earth. If anything, though, if anything goes wrong, there should be that spare fuel that we left in the fuel tanks at the station hub to help refuel our craft if we happen to run out of fuel by the time we get into orbit. But I highly doubt that we need it. Okay, and we are approaching 8 kilometers. Okay. Then... Uh-oh, what happened to my... Oops, let's get our HUDs up. Woo! I actually turned these HUDs off here. I was wondering what happened to them. Okay, we're past 13 kilometers, so let's go ahead and turn ourselves to 45 degrees. How come the quality is so low? I believe it has something to do with the bandwidth. I think somebody else in my household is using the internet currently, so it's slowing down the bandwidth a little bit, and it tends to wreak havoc on the quality. Every now and then, we drop down to about 480, good old-fashioned YouTube from the early 2000s style resolution. But hopefully you can still see everything. It's lagging! Oh no, that's a problem. Let me see here. I'll have to take a look at the software here and see what's going on with this. Okay, so we're going to turn our rocket over. 10 degrees above the horizon. We're just about ready to release the SRBs. SRBs away. Okay. Relative inclination is at 0.5 degrees. Definitely don't want that. So let's turn our rocket about this direction and drop that relative inclination. It takes a lot of delta V once we get into orbit just to change the inclination on something, even half a degree. Okay, let's see here. Alright, so we are down to 0.24 degrees on relative inclination. Looking beautiful. Okay, we're going to drop ourselves to equal to the horizon, so 0 degrees above the horizon here. Okay. Perfect. Alright. And we are looking good. We are at 1 minute to apoapse. Okay, relative inclination starting to increase again. So let's see if we can fix that. Oh, not so good. Let's turn ourselves slightly. Okay, much better. Okay, and we are in the upper parts of the horizon. About time for us to get rid of the arrow shell. But if anything I found, especially in real solar system, is that it can be rather harrowing to get rid of the arrow shell while the engines are on and you're still accelerating. So we're going to wait until we stop accelerating before we get rid of that arrow shell. Let's go ahead and lift our nose a little bit here. There we go. Okay, so we lifted our nose to 10 degrees. My father works for NASA. He makes speed calculating programs for the ISS. Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Let's see, here is he living in the US or is he also in the UK? Okay, and there we go. All right, so, uh-oh, looks like our inclination is increasing again. Ooh, let's see if we can fix that. There we go. Minute correction adjustments here. Okay, so we're out of fuel on this stage. Let's go and release the arrow shell. And then we're releasing the other... There we go, perfect. And jetting ourselves forward. Okay, so 10 degrees. All right, perfect. Now, as you can see, we have our main orbital engine around the moon. This has enough delta V to carry this capsule from the moon back to the Earth. This is the transit stage here with the atomic engine, and this gives us the added capability to get from. This gives us the lunar injection burn that we need to get to the moon from Earth orbit. So, pretty neat stuff. A shame though to have to resort to atomic engines, but in order to keep our Kerbals nice and safe, it's usually better to use low thrust engines. Okay, and our inclination is increasing again. There we go. Okay, things are looking nice and easy. He lives in the US. I see him twice every month. Oh. Well, he must enjoy it working for NASA. I know many college graduates who would love to work for them. And we're not talking about the astronaut corps. All right, and here we go. As you can see, okay, so we are now pushing 5 Gs here. The screen is starting to shake quite a bit. Okay, so let's turn ourselves to 0 degrees. And MECO, main engine cut off. We're gonna coast ourselves now. Looks like our apoapse is at 170 kilometers. Our relative inclination is looking beautiful. So we can pretty much just coast ourselves. So let's go and head on over to the apoapsis. Okay, whoops, there we are. And we're at the apoapse. Maximum burn! And let's lift that periapsis. Right now it's still in the negative. We want to get ourselves at a speed at about 7,800 meters per second to get ourselves into orbit around the Earth. Okay, there we go. Beautiful. All right, so we're at 770. We are almost there. 5 minutes to apoapse. We're going to go ahead and coast some more. There we go. Get ourselves to the apoapsis. And then turn ourselves to prograde. Okay, and then we're just going to give ourselves some small puffs here to lift this periapsis. There we go. We're thrusting up. Thrusting up so much you don't see any exhaust coming out of the engine. Oh, now you do. There we go. Okay, we are now in orbit. Next up, we're going to go ahead and adjust our relative inclination. So let's head on over towards our declination node, which is this guy over here. And we're going to turn ourselves normal. And then once we turn ourselves normal, we're going to scoot ourselves over to the declination node. We're going to decrease the limiter on our engine to 8%, because this is one really powerful engine, and we really don't need that much thrust in order to get our inclination looking good here. There we go. And then let's go ahead and thrust away, and we're going to get this relative inclination down to 0. 26.5, or as close to 0 as we can get it. 0.2 degrees, 0.15 degrees, 0.10 degrees. Okay, we are getting there. 0.03. And let's thrust again. 0.015. Okay, there we go. Now that we are there, main engine cut off, let me go ahead and prove a point here. Let's go ahead and pull up our orbital telemetry data. So now that we are at 0 degrees inclination to the moon, our orbital inclination with respect to the Earth should be at around 28.36 degrees. So let's take a look. Bum, bum, bum. And we are at orbital. Oops, let's show the engineer again. Get rid of the rendezvous, and yep, there it is. Orbital inclination is at 28.36 degrees, which, surprise, is the orbital inclination that we have with the with our moon space station. So both of them are pretty well aligned with each other. That should allow us so that when we burn directly to the moon and get ourselves into orbit, we will be at a relatively similar and hopefully identical inclination, so that make things a little bit easier for us to intercept with the space station. Okay, so what we're going to do next is F5 for safety, and then we're going to go ahead and plan out our maneuver node. So let's go ahead and add this maneuver node. And we should be back at about 3,200. Now what's really neat is we still have fuel in our launch stage, so this should definitely help us. Now, the difference between this insertion burn and the space station insertion burn is that we have Kerbals on board. So this one is going to be a whole lot less of a violent burn than we did with the burn for the space station to the moon. So the thrust-weight ratio is going to be a little bit smaller. Okay, let's see here. Alright, so let's head back to the craft, and then we're going to go ahead and time warp. Alright. ETA is... oh, estimated burn is 11 minutes. But that is only with this thrust limiter. We're going to put this back up to 100%. So we're going to flatten Jeb and Bill here like pancakes up against their seats for at least about 30 seconds or so while we use up the rest of the fuel on this burn here. And then after that, we're going to jettison this launch stage, and then we're going to activate the nuclear engine, which will give them a little bit more time to relax and put their eyeballs back into their sockets. Here we go, coming up to the node, and 25 minutes, 32 minutes. Okay, we're going to switch the camera to free mode here. And 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. Okay, there we go. So we're going to go over towards the maneuver node, and then we're going to begin the burn. Now, we are 8 minutes to the node, but we are starting our burn early, because what's going to happen is we're going to use up all the fuel in this launch stage, and then we're going to switch over to our atomic engine after that. Okay, so the thing that worries me is oh, I need to open my solar panels here. The thing that worries me is we're pointing below the horizon, which means there may be the possibility we're going to get back into the atmosphere during our burn. I hope that's not the case, but only one way to find out. Okay, Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and burn. As you can see, our periapse is starting to dip quite a bit. So once it hits close... Oh, we're going to stop the burn right there. Whew. Okay, so let's go ahead and scooch a little bit closer to the maneuver node because we are way too close to the atmosphere for me to feel comfortable about this. There we go. Okay, now we begin the burn again. Much better. As you can see, the screen is shaking because we are approaching 15 Gs on the burn. Okay, we've used up all the fuel in this engine, so we are jettisoning it and activating our nuclear engine. Now, as you can see, the time to burn has drastically changed. It went from just a couple minutes to 13 minutes. The thrust-to-weight ratio is pretty bad with regard to this engine, but the efficiency is pretty good. So what's going to happen is, first off, I'm going to increase time just a little bit here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to burn past our maneuver node. And then once we pass our maneuver node, what we're going to do is we're going to do another orbit around the Earth, and we're going to begin another burn after that. Because we've got a little bit more delta V to work on here to get ourselves transitioned to the moon. Okay. Node in 1 minute here. We're looking good, and our periapse is starting to increase again. Thank goodness, we were so close to the atmosphere. Whew, okay. Let's see here. Do you have no gimbal or thrust or other means of adjustment, or are you relying purely on math? Yes and no. Okay, here we go. So we are passing the maneuver node, and I'm going to burn for about another 2 minutes or so. And then after that, we're going to MECO the engines, and then we're going to circle the Earth again, and then we're going to do another maneuver node. Here we go. And as you can see, our Kerbals are a little bit more comfortable now because we are burning at less than a G worth of thrust. I mean, gosh, we're probably 1/10 of a G here worth of thrust here right now. So these Kerbals should be pretty comfortable right now. Okay, here we go. And we have about 1 kilometer left. Worth of delta V to burn to the moon. Alright, so what we're going to do is MECO this. And then we are going to disengage this node. And we're going to open up a brand new node. And our second time around the Earth should give us the necessary thrust to get ourselves to the moon. Okay, like so. Okay, so that puts us at 14,000 kilometers. We can make the adjustment after we do the burn. All right, here we go. So I'm going to turn ourselves to the maneuver node. And then we're going to begin our spin around the Earth. All right, and nice little hop around the Earth. We are passing, we're heading towards our apoapsis here. Ooh, let's hope Jebediah is not afraid of heights. And then we fall right back to the Earth again. All right, so we got a 7-minute burn ahead of us. And we're about 26 minutes, so we're going to start burning at about 3.5 minutes to the node. There we go. And come dipping back into the Earth again. Now we're going to be burning fairly close to the apoapsis, towards fairly close to the periapsis here, so we can take advantage of the Oberth effect. Now when we do our burn, which should give us some added bonus burning to the moon here. Okay, I think this should be good enough. We'll burn at about the 4-minute mark. 3, 2, 1, and burn. Okay, then we'll go ahead and speed up time. There we go. Okay, beautiful. Let's see here. All right, so we are at, let's see here, node in 3.5 minutes. 5 minutes left on the burn. Looking beautiful here, burning at a steady, gosh, let's see here. Vessel itself, show engineer. Thrust, torque. Okay. We got plenty of delta V left to get to the moon. Oh yeah, we definitely need to rename this craft here. Rename vessel, and we're just going to call it the Orion. Accept. Okay. There we go. And we got a little bit of a shimmy here. That is not an indication that we are burning too strong. That's just because we're time warp. We're doing physical time warp here, which causes the vehicle to shake, unfortunately. Okay, and we are 50 seconds to the node. We have 400 meters per second left to go till we finish this burn. Okay, 350. Looking beautiful here. Let's go and take a look at our map here. Okay. Getting to the moon. Let's go and double check our orbital inclination. Orbital inclination is at 28.36 degrees. Look at that. Beautiful. Okay, and 150 meters per second left to go. Let's go and head on over to the map. And then we're going to MECO this in just a little bit. Okay, and 30 meters per second. Perfect. Okay, MECO, and we're going to turn off the maneuver node, and we're going to eyeball this puppy here. Here we go. There we go. Okay, so this is going to be a retrograde orbit. Something I really don't want. Right here. Okay. Actually, this is going to be a prograde orbit. Woo! Okay. Perfect. And then we are at 14,000 kilometers, 13,000 kilometers. Get that periaps closer. Come on. There we go. 7,000 kilometers. Okay. 2,000 kilometers. 1,000. Perfect. Okay. There we go. 196. There we go. 138 kilometers. All right. We are on the way to the moon. Okay, let's go ahead and let's time warp. And we are leaving the Earth behind. You know what, though? I really should delete that. That's the that's the one of the engine stages that we use to get into orbit here. That Orion Moon Version Mark II probe. It's because I put a probe body on that rocket, so I'll have to remind myself to delete that later. Okay, here we go. And coming to the moon right now, signal strength is at 100%, so we're looking good. And expressions of indifference from both Bill, Bob, and Jeb there. Okay, and here we go. And gonna go ahead and speed up time. Oh wait, are we in a retrograde? Are we? Oh, no, we're okay. Whew. I thought we were gonna end up in a retrograde orbit around the moon. But we are on a prograde. Now, as you can see, getting into orbit around the moon kind of... I sort of flubbed up the inclination because we are at 28.46 degree inclination orbit around the moons. We are off by 1/10 of a degree, but that is an easy fix, and we got plenty of delta V. In actuality, I was betting that I would have to jettison this atomic engine doing the moon transition burn, but we still got plenty of fuel in this puppy, so I guess I can keep this engine. I may have overestimated the fuel requirements to get this Orion module to the moon. Okay, let's see here. And then let's go and head on over to the periapsis. Let's see, moon periapsis is at 200 kilometers. We're gonna target, there we go, there. Okay. Now the good news about this craft is we kind of overdid it on the life support and supplies. If we take a look at the life support and supplies, we've got plenty of food, water, and oxygen. Ooh, let me turn this off here. So much food, water, and oxygen that if we take a look here, we have enough food and supplies to last us 234 days. However, I don't plan on letting them sit around the moon for 234 days inside a cramped capsule. I imagine that would be just terrible for them. But it's good that we have some extra food, fuel, and supplies, food, oxygen, and some water and whatnot, should we encounter a situation where we need to send a rescue mission to them. Here we go. And not to mention, the space station hub that we have around the moon has some extra supplies as well. Whoops. I wasn't paying attention and I passed the periapse. Let me retro. Gosh, okay. Ooh, shame on me for not paying attention. We're about ready to zip by the moon here. Let's go ahead and get our burn done. All right, and time warp. Okay, because the thrust weight ratio on this engine is so terrible, it's going to take us a little bit of a burn to get ourselves into an orbital insertion. Let's see here. Okay. There we go. Yay! Alright, so now we have an actual apoapse, which means... Wait a minute. We should have an actual apoapse. There we go. Which means that we are now in orbit. Woo! Okay. So let's go ahead and... Well, that's no bueno. The periapsis, we are on course to crash into the moon. Not a terribly good thing. So when we... Let's go ahead and head on over to the apoapsis here, and let's go and lift our Let's go ahead and lift our periapsis. And we're gonna F5 for safety. And what we're gonna do here is we're gonna hold down F9 and we're gonna load our last quick save, which should be our orbit around the moon. Yep. Okay. And that should help reset the memory a little bit so that we get a little bit more smoother frames per second here on this game. Since real solar system tends to be fairly resource intensive, it tends to wreak havoc on the FPS sometimes. So it's always a good idea to F5 to quick save and also reload your quick save every now and then to reset the memory. Let's see here. There we go. Now, I'm not sure if it's true, but I guess every now and then real solar system tends to have some computer memory leaks, which kind of leads to the drop in frame rate sometimes. Okay, here we go, and we are at the apoapse, and let's go ahead and burn forward, and we're gonna lift our periapse. There we go. Let's lift our periapse to about 100 kilometers. There we go. 102 kilometers should be exactly perfect. And let us zoom ahead. And then we're going to zoom down to the periapse. Let's double check, see what our orbital inclination is. Right now our orbital inclination is still at 28.46 degrees. So we are still looking beautiful here. There it is. So we are off by 1/10 of a degree with regards to the moon station orbit. Okay, and then as we approach the periapsis, we're going to go ahead and begin our retrograde burn. Let's see, free camera, and we got the beautiful moon below us. And we are upside down. However, that should make some pretty stellar views from the cockpit here. If we stare out the window, we've got the scenic, beautiful moon below us. Look at that. Okay, so let's go ahead and flip ourselves about, and we're going to begin our orbital correction burn. 3, 2, 1, mark, and we are burning. Okay, so we orbital velocity around the moon at about this altitude should be roughly 1,600 meters per second. So we've got about 600 meters per second worth of delta V that we need to burn off in order to get ourselves into a nice circular orbit. Okay, here we go. I will buy this game because the developers deserve this money. They certainly do deserve this, deserve the money. However, the original developers for this game aren't around anymore. Felipe, who was the original head developer of this game, left a squad, unfortunately, along with a whole lot of the staff that worked originally with this game. Reasons unknown. I'd like to believe, though, it was for professional reasons, though. So there's a whole different group of developer staff that are currently improving this game now. But unfortunately, they aren't really as far as I know, the original people that made this game. Felipe and his crew are long gone. But I hope that they are producing games just as innovative as this one. Okay, and 1900 meters per second. Let's go ahead and speed up time here to 3 times speed. Okay, there we go. As you can see, the apoapsis is slowly but surely decreasing. Let's see. There we go. And 1,000 kilometers on the apoapsis. And we are almost circularized. 400 kilometers left to go. I mean, 200 kilometers left to go. There we go. Oh. I might have overburned. Okay, and then let's go ahead and turn ourselves prograde here. Well, now what's really interesting here is I still have this atomic engine attached to me, and we still have plenty of fuel on this atomic engine. We haven't even touched the fuel on the main maneuvering engine on this vehicle, so we may just keep the atomic engine for this whole trip, actually. Kind of neat, though. It's not every day that I overestimate the fuel requirements for a vehicle in real solar system. Pretty easy to do in stock Kerbal Space Program, but in real solar system, you never really quite have enough fuel to do anything in real solar system. Okay, here we go. Let's go ahead and lift our periapsis. And let's get it above 100 kilometers. Actually, since we are on the other side of the moon in reference to the space station, let's activate our RCS. And then let's drop our periapsis. Let's drop it down to about 90 kilometers. And we're going to drop our apoapsis to about 90 kilometers as well. Okay, let's see here. You always have extra fuel. Damn efficient planning. Well, thank you, Mr. Duck Swan. Good night, Flyer Fred. Have yourself a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, and let's go ahead and adjust our inclination to the space station. So we're reaching our declination node, so let's go ahead and turn our vehicle to normal. There we go. Okay, deactivating RCS. And then let's go ahead and zip on over towards our declination node. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to change this inclination to 28.36 degrees instead of 28.46 degrees. There we go. Yeah, rendezvous. This should get our relative inclination pretty close to 0 here. Right here. So 0.02, 0.01. And perfect. All right. So right now, our relative inclination is at 0.0 degrees, which means we are lined up on the orbital plane to our space station. Okay, let's scooch on over to the periapse. Then what we're going to do is at the periapse, we're going to do another retrograde burn, and that's going to drop our apoapsis. Oh, something's going on here. Okay, I'm going to F5 for safety here. Looks like we have a little bit of... Oh! I thought there was a graphical glitch, but we're actually inside of the capsule. Let's exit the capsule there. Okay. Here we go. So, beginning burn in 3, 2, 1. There we go. And we're dropping our apoapse. We're going to drop our apoapse down to 90 kilometers. There we go. Okay. Here we go. Then, now we are in an inside orbit with respect to the space station. That means we are traveling in a faster orbit to the space station. So we should be doing some sort of phase transition to them. We just have to speed up time. Our distance to the space station is 3 million meters. But as you can see, it's decreasing because we're in an inside orbit. So what we're going to do then is... we're going to F5 for safety. And then we're going to head back to the tracking station. And then we're going to speed up time in the tracking station. So let's head on over to the Orion. Ooh, first off, I need to get rid of this piece of debris. So terminate that debris. And here we are. And then we're going to speed up time here in the tracking station until we get a little bit closer to the space station. Okay, so we're catching up to it ever so slowly. Okay, and oh, here we go. Okay, so we're getting there. Let's speed up time again. And speed up time again. And again. Okay. Getting ever so close. Okay, that looks about right. Okay, next up, let's head on back to the Orion capsule. We should be pretty close. Okay, and let's see what we got here. Right now, we are 49 kilometers to the Gateway Space Station. Woo! Okay, so what we are going to do is we're going to increase our orbit. Let's head on over to prograde with respect to the orbit. And we're going to increase our periapse and apoapse. Let's increase our periapse and apoapse to about 99 kilometers. That way we have about... let's see here, 1 kilometer separation between us and the station in respect to the orbit. So using the RCS ever just slightly, doing phase transition burns rather than pulling a maneuver node and doing a Holman transfer saves a lot of delta V. The trade-off, however, is it takes up a lot of time, so you need to make sure that you bring enough life support. Because these Kerbals, right now, they are 10 days. They have spent 10 days away from the Earth. So, if you consider 3 days to get to the moon, and then another week that they have spent inside this capsule, orbiting around the moon in hopes of intercepting that space station. There we go. So, apoapse is now at... we'll do 99.5 kilometers, so really slight puffs. There we go. Okay, here we go, and then should be approaching the space station a little bit less audaciously now. Now that our orbit is starting to get a little bit closer to the space station's orbit. Okay, we should be approaching the apoapse. Distance is at 22 kilometers. There we go. Okay. And once we get to the apoapse, we're going to do some more puffs on our RCS to get ourselves a little bit to lift our periapse also to 99 kilometers. Ooh, let's turn off that RCS. Okay, RCS is off. And let's see here. Okay. Distance is at 22 kilometers. Okay, distance is increasing for some reason. I think I may have overestimated a few things. Okay, so let's get our periapse up. So we are using our RCS to do some small gentle puffs. And let's lift our periapses to 98 kilometers instead. There we go. Okay, RCS off. F5. Okay, so as you can see, we've lost some frame rates here. That is a side effect, again, of using real solar system. And I think it's starting to load in some details I don't need it to load. Either that or we got some crazy memory leaks going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick save, and then we're going to load to that quick save. And that should do a little bit. There we go. See, now we've got our frame rates back again. Another reason why I'm not a huge fan of real solar system, but still though, it's a really fun challenge. Okay. Here we go. So we should be on approach to the space station here. Beautiful. Look at that. As you can see, the space station is wobbling back and forth. And the reason why the space station is wobbling left and right like that is because our orbital inclination is off by 2/100th of a degree. As you can see, our orbital inclination is at 28.38 degrees. And the space station is at an orbital inclination of 28.36 degrees. So because of that off, you're going to see this thing wobble back and forth by 2/100ths of a degree. Okay, and 5 kilometers. We are fast approaching. And there it is. Okay, I wonder if we're near a declination node here. Yep, there's a declination node. I wonder, no, we probably don't have time to do that. That's okay though. And chances are we're probably going to dock on the dark side of the moon. With my luck. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch over to the targeting node. And we're going to click control from here on the docking port. Okay. And we are 2.2 kilometers from the station. So let's go ahead and activate our RCS. And we're going to use our RCS to maneuver this prograde node over towards our target node here. There we go. Perfect. How's our monopropellant fuel holding up? Monopropellant is still good. Okay. And then we're going to activate our nuclear engine and give this a little bit of a burn. And we are now approaching our target at a steady 5 meters per second. That should be pretty good. Okay, so I don't need Kerbal Engineer at this time. We're just going to eyeball a little bit of this here. And then we're going to time warp to our target. Okay. And as we get a little closer, the inconsistencies in our approach start to become a little bit more apparent as the prograde marker veers a little bit off towards our target marker on our nav ball. Okay, again, we've got a little bit of a dip in frame rate, so F5 to quick save, and then we are going to reload again. And there we go. Okay, so we got our frame rates back again. All right, so speed up time. Okay, so we are moving in recklessly fast. Let's go ahead and slow ourselves down. So RCS up. And we are RCSing ourselves to slow ourselves down. Let's slow down to about 2 meters per second. Okay, and RCS off. Okay, and what do we got going on here? Let's take a look at the space station. And we want to enter it right there at that tippy top node. So what we're gonna do, gosh, and I wish we were docking on the day side of the moon, because it's just my luck, we always end up docking on the night side of the planet here. Okay, so RCS, and I want to make sure that we move properly towards the target rather than moving slantwise to it. Okay, and unfortunately, because we still got this really heavy atomic engine attached to our backside, it's making our craft a little bit unstable when we use our RCS, so the center of mass is a little bit off. So each time I use our RCS, we tend to wobble a little bit in different directions. But that's okay. That's something we can definitely compensate for. Okay, and we're going to speed up time again. Okay, so we're approaching over the top of the vehicle. There we go. Okay, so we should be up by the top. Next up, let's go ahead and RCS back. And we're going to decrease our relative velocity down to 0 so that we can get our bearings here. 0.1. Oh, there we go. And then to the target. There we go. So our relative velocity is at 0.2 meters per second. And we're going to switch to free camera mode so that we get a nice view of the moon while we dock with this station here. Okay. Here we go. So let's go ahead and get our docking indicator here up and running. And what we're going to do is we're going to spin our craft around. And let's spin ourselves to 0 degrees should be good. Okay, so we're gonna do this is our roll indicator here, and we're gonna get our roll indicator down to as close to 0 degrees as we can. Come on. Come on, right now we're 0.1 degrees. Oop. Kind of overcompensated there. Okay. Close enough. All right, so next up, we're going to get our alignment to the node. Make sure that we are perpendicular to the craft. That's what this indicator is for. So we're going to turn our craft ever so slightly. There we go. And this indicator means that we are moving away from the craft at 0.2 meters per second. And then this is our distance between this docking port and that docking port, which is 60 meters now. So what we're going to do is we're going to RCS forward. There we go. So that means that we are now traveling 0.14 meters per second towards our target. This green cross indicator means that we are drifting sideways of the target. So what we're going to do is we are going to move our yellow indicator here. There we go. Now, this green cross indicator means that we are aligned horizontally with the target, okay, but vertically we are not. So that's something we definitely need to fix. So RCS up again. And because the RCS, because of this atomic engine strapped to our butt here, makes us fishtail a little bit every time we use our RCS, doesn't help a whole lot. Another challenge that we have there. Okay, let's roll. Okay, there we go. All right, so next up, let's go ahead and time warp again. And as we time warp, you'll see that we are steadily coming back into alignment with the station here. Okay, and there we go. And we're going to RCS again. And little tippy taps here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit caps lock. As you can see, that'll switch from orange to blue. And blue means that we are in fine-tune mode. That helps me with the overcorrection on the RCS here. Okay. Here we go. And we are almost lined up. Ideally, you want to match up the green alignment indicator with the orange indicator with the yellow indicator. So we are almost aligned. Okay. And of course, let's see here. If you watch my previous live streams or previous episodes, this is one of my favorite parts of the game. I love docking. Docking is a lot of fun to me. For some folks, I know it requires a little bit of patience for a lot of folks, but there's something about little ballet dance between two separate vehicles as they're flying at several kilometers per second around another body that makes it pretty cool. Okay, so we got a little bit of a... I'm going to quick save and then quick load again because we've experienced another dip in frame rate. Okay, there we go. Much better. Okay, so let's go ahead. RCS. Get that fine-tune mode back up and running again. Alright, so we are at 20 meters to target. We are at 19 meters to target, slowing ourselves just a tad bit. By NASA standards, this is recklessly fast. When the vehicles dock with each other, say the Soyuz module docks with the International Space Station, they measure their docking speed in centimeters per second. We are measuring ours in meters per second here, so we're moving pretty fast here. Okay. May not look it, but we are moving pretty fast. There we go. And if we take a look from the inside of our craft, excuse me, another beautiful view here. If we just peer over the window. Oh, terrible view from the window. We can kind of see the space station up there. Now, the downside of going into cockpit view is it kind of resets where we're controlling from, so we need to get back to the docking port here. Okay. There we go. Coming up nice and easy. And I'm fixing our roll a little bit, seeing if I can get as close to 0 degrees as possible. Up here, that's the roll indicator. And right now, I am off by 0.1 degrees on the roll. That's okay, though. Only applies if you're incredibly OCD about this. Which admittedly I am a lot of the time when it comes to docking. Okay, so puffs from our RCS as we get in closer. Okay, here. Evel Knievel of the heavens. Yes, sir. I absolutely agree, Duck Swan. Sometimes our docking speeds can be recklessly fast here, even though it doesn't show. Okay. Here we go. And we're coming in nice and close. And just so that we can, just because we like to show off our incredible docking prowess in this game, we are going to have Bill here, our resident space engineer, pop on out of the craft. And he is going to inspect the docking between these two craft here. Lights on. And he is going to wave guide our dock between these two craft. So here we go. Need to spice things up with some dramatic music. I agree, Sasha Terry. Unfortunately, most dramatic music is copyrighted, so. All right, here we go. So we got Bill here checking things out, watching the dock. And then we're going to head back to our craft. Ooh, there we go. And we are off by just a little bit. Let's go ahead and reset that. All right, Bill. Bill is supervising our dock here. Oh my gosh, we are off. There we go. Perfect. RCS off, and then SAS off. And we've got a perfect dock. Well, almost perfect. As you saw, we were kind of off on the alignment at the last second there, but things kind of worked out there in the end. So, good deal. Oh my gosh. Okay. I definitely should have brought another set of solar panels with me if I knew I was going to be docking with this pod here. But just to make sure that we have a decent dock with the station and make sure everything is secure, what we're going to do is we're going to have Bill get into the inventory. And we're going to have him pull out a toolkit here. And he's going to equip split 1, split 2, and we're going to attach a strut between the pod and also the station hub here. That way we make sure that we have a secure connection and we don't have a whole lot of wobble between these two guys. Let's see here. Absolutely, Bill was there to ensure proper coupling. As the resident space engineer, he is the expert when it comes to these sorts of things. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, first off, we are going to connect the first piece here. There we go. And then we're going to connect the second strut. Okay, a little bit of a sloppy connection there, but that's okay. And then we're going to link that strut over to the capsule here. And link. Oh, okay. So, looks like the strut here was set up kind of at a wrong angle. So we're going to go and grab it. There we go. And then we're going to reattach that puppy. Let's see here. So the strut is there. Let's go ahead and attach it right there. That should be at a decent angle. Then we'll go ahead and approach the strut. And link. Perfect. Look at that. All right, so we got some space tape attached to our space station, making for a nice solid link. And then we're going to unequip and put this back into the toolbox here. Inventory. Back into the container. Okay, good deal. And then Bill here is going to do his inspection of the craft. Make sure everything is well ordered. Needs to be where it needs to be. As you can see, looks like everything is in solid piece. Everything is intact here. We got our 4 docking nodes here that we will be using to attach the habitat stations and also added fuel tanks. We've got another toolbox down here that we can use. And we've got our fuel tank with still some fuel in it. This one we definitely need to jettison at some point. It's just adding some unneeded weight to our space station here. But we'll definitely get rid of this once we attach a fuel tank to the station and transfer the spare fuel from this tank. There you go. And then we got the moon directly below us, drifting majestically by. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, and then, let's see here. Okay, so there's our orbital maneuvering engines for the space station, courtesy of, let's see here, courtesy of the Space Y mod parts. It looks like, yep, everything is good. Let's make sure that we've got, this is where our main life support is attached to for the station. Let's go and take a look and see how much life support we have. So we're going to head back to the capsule here. And board. So if need be, if these guys were stuck out here, we now have 1 year and 100 days worth of life support combined between this pod here and also the space station. So not too shabby. Alrighty, good deal. So next up, our next mission will be, we will detach this capsule and we will send the Orion capsule back to Earth where it'll re-enter the atmosphere. So we'll test the re-entry capabilities of this capsule. We need to make sure that the Orion doesn't burn up in the atmosphere. So we're going to have to test that with live Kerbals inside the capsule, of course. So we're going to go ahead and take a break until then. So thank you all for coming to our live stream for today, and we will see you all next time.